My wife cheated with our neighbor during our divorce, claiming she only got a few $100s from the sale of our house. Then I found out she's hiding millions in offshore accounts and plans to take everything. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not after 10 years of what I thought was a pretty stable marriage. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and mine hit me hard. The thing is, I didn't just find out she was cheating. I found out she'd been lying about everything, hiding millions in offshore accounts while telling me she only got a few $100s from selling our house. That betrayal hit me like a freight train, and honestly, I still can't believe I was so blind. It all started a few months ago. My wife Lisa had been acting weird, distant, secretive constantly on her phone. She'd brush off my questions with some excuse about work or needing me time. She was always the type to be a little bitchy when she was annoyed, but lately, it was like she was avoiding me altogether. I noticed her spending more time with our neighbor Mark, who moved in about a year ago. They'd always been friendly, but suddenly, they were inseparable. I'd catch her sneaking off to meet him after work or during the weekends. One day, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I decided to surprise her and see if she was home. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked in the garage, but the door to the backyard was slightly open. I figured she was probably in the garden, so I tiptoed around to surprise her. That's when I saw her through the window. She was naked, sitting on Mark's lap, kissing him like they were in some kind of world of their own. My stomach dropped. I froze for a second, trying to process what I was seeing. My mind raced. How long has this been going on? How could she do this to me? My wife, the woman I loved, cheating on me with our neighbor. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and betrayal all at once. I kept staring, unsure whether I should storm in or just leave. I was so stunned that I didn't even notice I'd started sweating. I finally backed away slowly, retreating to my car. I sat in silence, trying to think, trying to breathe. All these years I thought we had a good marriage, and now I see she's been lying to me from the start. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed to gather my thoughts first. I needed proof. I needed to understand how deep this rabbit hole went. Over the next few days, I started digging. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, something she was hiding. I noticed she was withdrawing more money from our joint account, but when I asked about it, she brushed it off as expenses or saving for a rainy day. She'd lie so smoothly that I almost believed her. But I knew better. I remembered her mentioning that she only got a few $100s from selling the house, yet I later found out she'd been transferring massive sums of money into offshore accounts. The more I looked, the more I realized she'd been planning her escape for a while. She was hiding millions from me. That's when I started connecting the dots. She told me she wanted a divorce because she needed space and that she was done with the marriage. But her actions told a different story. She was planning something big, and I was just a pawn in her game. I felt betrayed, not just by her infidelity but by her complete disregard for the years we'd built together. I was angry, yes, but also hurt in a way I hadn't felt before. I'd poured my heart into that marriage, and she'd thrown it away for some cheap affair and a stash of offshore cash. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to do something. I started making plans, figuring out how to get my fair share of everything she was hiding, and more importantly, how to make her pay for the betrayal. I wasn't just going to walk away and let her take everything. No, I was going to make sure she understood exactly how much she'd screwed up. That's where this story begins, and trust me, it's only going to get messier from here. After I gathered enough evidence, I knew I had to confront her directly. I didn't want to do it impulsively, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal anymore. The day I decided to face her, I was filled with a strange mix of determination and dread. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady, but inside I was boiling. She looked at me with her usual bitchy smirk, the one she always used when she thought she had the upper hand. "So Lisa," I started, my voice tight. I know what you've been up to. I saw you with Mark. I know about the offshore accounts. I know you've been lying about the money from the house. Tell me, how long has this been going on? She blinked at me, her eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? You're just paranoid. I told you I was stressed about the divorce. I needed some time for myself. Mark's just a friend, and you're making it into something it's not. I cut her off. Don't lie to me. I saw you. You're cheating and you're stealing from me. I found out you've been hiding millions in offshore accounts. You lied about the house sale, said you got a few $100, but I found transfers for millions. How long have you been planning this? How much did you take? Her face twisted with anger. You're overreacting. You don't understand what I've been going through. The house sale, yes, I got some money, but it's not your concern anymore. I'm done with this marriage. I deserve better. I felt my blood boil. You think you're leaving with everything? No way. I'm not going to let you walk away with my life's work, my savings, my future. You've been lying, cheating, and stealing from me. You're the one who's done, Lisa, not me. She scoffed. You're just jealous. You can't handle that I found someone else, someone who actually cares about me. And as for the money, you're so naive. You don't even know the half of it. I've been planning my escape for months, and now I'm finally free. I clenched my fists. You're not escaping me. I've already contacted my lawyer. I want a divorce, and I want everything that's mine. And I'll be damned if you take a penny of what I've built without a fight. She rolled her eyes, but I saw the flicker of panic behind her smirk. She knew I was serious. That's when I decided I had to act fast before she could cover her tracks or hide more of the money. I didn't trust her anymore, not one bit. I started digging into her bank accounts, her offshore holdings, anything I could get my hands on. That's when I found it. Hidden in a shell company in the Caribbean, she had transferred hundreds of millions. I couldn't believe it. All this time, she'd been pretending she was just a simple wife, when in reality, she was a damn financial wizard, planning her escape with a fortune I never knew existed. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, but I also knew this was just the beginning. She kept insisting she was just trying to start fresh, that she deserved happiness, but I saw through her lies. She'd been lying all along, about the money, about her feelings, about everything. I realized I'd been living in a bubble, and now that it burst, there was no going back. I had to decide what to do next, but one thing was clear. I was not going to let her take everything without a fight. The betrayal ran too deep, and I was done being a fool. The more I dug, the clearer it became that Lisa had been planning her escape for a long time. I found statements from offshore banks, shell companies, and even fake corporations registered under her name. She'd been funneling money into accounts in Panama, and Switzerland. Millions, no, billions hidden away, and I was just figuring it out now. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She had a whole secret life I never knew about, all designed to leave me with nothing. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. It was surreal. All those years, I thought we were building a future together. Turns out, she was building her own empire behind my back. She told me she only got a few hundred from selling the house, yet she was secretly transferring millions to offshore accounts. I felt like such an idiot for not seeing the signs earlier. She'd been so convincing, so manipulative that I'd let her lie to me for years. That night I stayed up all night going through every document I could find. I was furious, not just at her cheating, but at myself for being so blind. How could I have missed it? How could I have let her do this? I kept asking myself if I was just a pawn in her game, or if I was truly this naive. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without some kind of plan. I had to be smart, calculated. I couldn't let her manipulate me any further. The next morning I called my lawyer. I explained everything, her affair with Mark, the offshore accounts, the money she'd been hiding. I wanted to know my options, how to freeze her assets, how to get my fair share. My lawyer was stunned at the extent of it. He told me I had a strong case, but I'd need to act fast. Lisa was good at covering her tracks, but I was determined to catch her in the act. In the meantime, I started to prepare myself emotionally. I knew this wasn't just about money or infidelity. It was about betrayal on a scale I never expected. I felt betrayed as a husband, as a man who'd worked his ass off for years. I'd trusted her completely, and she'd used that trust to screw me over. I was angry, but I also felt a deep sadness, like I'd lost the woman I thought I knew. I also started to think about revenge. Not just financial revenge, but making her realize that she couldn't just walk away from everything she'd done. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, the weight of her lies. I knew I had to be careful. She was smart, dangerous even. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even years. I had to outthink her, outmaneuver her. That's when I decided I'd go after her offshore accounts myself, expose her secrets, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. The thing is, I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. That's the hardest part, realizing that the woman I married turned out to be someone else entirely. Someone willing to cheat, steal, and lie to get what she wanted. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew I had to face reality. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. So I kept my head clear, kept working with my lawyer, and started putting my plan into motion. I knew I was going to have to be patient and precise. This wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about protecting what was mine and making her understand that you can't lie and steal forever without consequences. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to see it through. By the time I had all the evidence laid out in a clear plan, I knew I had to act fast. Lisa was smart, probably the person I'd ever met, so I couldn't afford to give her any more time to cover her tracks. I contacted a private investigator I knew, someone who specialized in financial crimes and offshore accounts. I told him to dig deeper, to find out exactly how much she'd hidden, where it was, and how she'd managed to transfer everything without me noticing. While waiting for the PI's report, I started reviewing all the financial documents I had access to. I wanted to understand the scope of her deception. She'd been funneling money into secret accounts for years, slowly building her escape plan. I found emails where she discussed starting fresh and leaving everything behind, and her words now sounded like a manifesto of betrayal. It was brutal to read those, knowing she'd been lying to me every single day. One night, I decided to confront her again, to try and get some answers face to face. I told her I knew about the offshore accounts, about the money she'd been hiding, and that I was closing in. Her reaction was priceless. She looked genuinely panicked for the first time. She started spinning more lies, claiming it was all for her future, that I'd never understand her desires, that she was entitled to a better life. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game now, and I knew she was trying to buy time, maybe even manipulate me into thinking she was innocent. I also discovered she'd been secretly talking to a lawyer in another country, trying to set up a new life somewhere far away. That was the last straw. She was planning to run, to disappear with her hidden millions, and leave me with nothing. I realized I had to act even faster. I couldn't let her slip away with everything she'd stolen. The PI finally came back with his report. It confirmed everything I suspected. She had transferred hundreds of millions into offshore accounts, using complex shell companies to hide her assets. It was mind-blowing. I felt sick knowing she'd been planning this for years, lying to me all along. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was war now. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her walk away. I contacted the authorities in the countries where her accounts were held. I worked with financial investigators to freeze her assets, to bring her illegal transfers to a halt. It was complicated. She'd used layers of anonymity, fake corporations, and offshore banks to hide her wealth. But I was persistent. I wanted her to feel the pressure, to realize she couldn't outrun her lies forever. Meanwhile, Lisa kept insisting she was done with the marriage, that she deserved happiness, and that I should just accept her decision. But I saw through her bullshit. She was scared, and she knew I was closing in. That's when I decided to go public with what I had uncovered. Not to ruin her completely, but to make her understand that her actions had consequences. I knew she'd try to spin it as some kind of victimization, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. The emotional was relentless. One moment I was furious, the next I was devastated. I kept asking myself how someone I loved could do this to me, how she could betray everything we'd built for some quick escape. It hurt more than I thought possible, but I also knew I couldn't change what she did. I could only control my response. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine and to make sure she paid for her lies. This was the turning point. I'd uncovered her secrets, taken steps to freeze her assets, and exposed her to the authorities. Now, it was just a matter of time before she'd face the consequences. I didn't know exactly what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be her victim. Not anymore. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, financial investigations, and emotional exhaustion. I worked closely with my lawyer, who was relentless in pushing the case forward. We filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent Lisa from accessing any more of the offshore accounts, and we started the process of equitable division of assets. It was clear she had been planning her escape for years, but now she was running out of options. Every day, I felt a mix of relief and rage. Relief that I was finally taking back control, rage that she'd betrayed me so completely. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior became more erratic. She tried to spin stories about how she deserved a fresh start, how she was done with the lies, and how I was just jealous of her new freedom. She even had the audacity to accuse me of controlling her, as if her cheating and theft weren't enough. I could see her desperation, her frantic attempts to save herself, but I wasn't falling for it. I knew her game now, and I was ready for her next move. One evening, I discovered that she'd been trying to contact her lawyer in another country, probably to set up a new offshore shell company or to transfer more money. I intercepted her emails and saw her scheming to hide her assets even further. That was the final push I needed. I went straight to my lawyer and told him we had to get a court order to seize her assets immediately. We also contacted international authorities to track down her hidden money. I was determined to make her pay for her lies, her betrayal, and her greed. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been living in her shadow for too long, letting her manipulate and deceive me. Now I was finally taking control. The pain of discovering her affair and the wealth she'd stolen was overwhelming, but I knew I had to stay strong. I had to protect what was mine: my home, my money, my dignity. As the legal process unfolded, I started to reflect on what I'd learned. Trust is fragile, I guess, and sometimes the people we love the most are the ones capable of the worst betrayals. I thought about all those years I'd worked hard, only to find out she'd been planning her escape behind my back. It made me realize how much I'd underestimated her, how blind I'd been to her true nature. In the end, I decided I would fight for every penny, every dollar, every asset she tried to hide. I wasn't just doing this for the money. I was doing it for my dignity, my self-respect, and to send her a clear message that betrayal has consequences. I knew this wasn't over yet, but I was finally in control of my future again. And honestly, it felt like the first step toward healing, even amid all the chaos. I just hope others in similar situations realize that sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to take a stand and fight back. Looking back now, I realize how much everything changed in just a few months. The legal battles, the financial investigations, the betrayals, they all left scars, but they also taught me some hard truths. Lisa's betrayal wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about trust, about how someone you love can turn into a stranger overnight. I thought I knew her, but I was dead wrong. Still, I'm grateful I uncovered the truth before she managed to completely destroy what I'd worked for. All these years, the courts eventually ordered her to surrender her offshore accounts, and she was hit with hefty penalties for hiding assets and attempting to defraud me. She tried to deny everything to play the victim, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Watching her squirm under the weight of her lies was a small victory, but it didn't erase the pain of her betrayal. Still, it gave me a sense of closure I desperately needed. I moved out of the house shortly after everything was settled. It was tough leaving a place filled with memories, good and bad, but I knew I had to start fresh. I sold the house, paid off some debts, and took some time to heal. The process was messy, emotionally draining, and at times heartbreaking. But I learned that the only way forward was to accept what happened and focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece. Now I keep my guard up. I don't trust easily anymore, and I don't take anything for granted. But I've also gained a new perspective. I realize that sometimes The biggest betrayals come from the people we trust the most. And that's why I'm sharing my story, so others can see that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. You have to be brave, be smart, and fight for yourself. Don't let anyone take everything from you without a fight. Most importantly, I've learned that revenge isn't just about getting back at someone. It's about reclaiming your dignity, standing up for what's right, and making sure the truth comes out in the end. Lisa thought she could cheat, steal, and run away, but I made sure she paid the price. And in doing so, I found a sense of peace I never thought I'd have again. It's not perfect, and I still have scars, but I'm moving forward, stronger, wiser, and more cautious than ever. To anyone dealing with betrayal, I'll say this: never underestimate your own strength. Dig deep, get the proof, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Because in the end, the truth will set you free, even if it comes with a lot of pain along the way.